Are you tired of websites that have been Frankenstein together?
Oh, my website is so slow and creaky.
Every time I use the search bar, it just returns Abby Normal over and over again.
Becky's sister company, the Concept Spot, holds the secret to life itself and can create new life from nothing. In fact, we've been giving life to highly functional websites for the last 25 years using premium parts we swear we didn't salvage from graveyards.
Ooh, check out that header image. Instead of going, my new website purrs.
Need a blog? The Concept Spot can do that. Want an online store? We can do that too.
We build our sites from the cellular level. No reused templates or discarded body parts here, so we can make your site do whatever you want and look however you want.
It's gorgeous! I can't even see the stitches.
We can also resurrect your dead website if rigor mortis has set in.
Oh, it's like a new man.
If you think Homespun Haints is frighteningly genius, you should see our websites. Let your favorite ghoulish gals, Becky and Diana, build you a monstrous website that will wreak havoc on the internet for years to come.
Visit theconceptspot.com for more information.
It's live! It's live! What does it mean to be human? Does being human mean you're exclusively of this planet? Or does it mean you can also be something else at the same time? Every day we discover more and more about our universe and our connections to it. And with every new story about the world around us, we realize we actually don't know anything at all. But that doesn't mean we can't dig deeper on our own. Our guest today has done just that through her own art and has learned how to tap into something beyond what we typically experience with our five senses. And of course, she has some ghost stories. Let's hear from Jordan today on Homespun Haints. Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haints. I'm Becky.
I'm Diana.
And look at us. Every time we're on here, we look completely different. This is like the portfolio of looks of Diana and Becky. For me, I hate it when I wear like blue or purple lipstick because it makes my teeth look yellow. But they're really actually very white right now. So just pretend that I'm a zombie or something.
I made homemade mouthwash for the first time ever, and I can't believe I didn't do it before because it's so ridiculously easy and cheap. It's like water, salt, baking soda, and xylitol.
Delicious.
But then I got fancy, and I was like, I could make this better. And I made an extract out of chamomile and aloe and arnica. But unfortunately, it turned out brown. So I'm a little afraid to use it because I don't want my teeth to turn brown. So I was Googling, like, what could I put in my mouthwash to make it the opposite of yellow?
Bleach.
And it's a hibiscus.
Oh, hibiscus.
The opposite of yellow is bleach? I thought the opposite of yellow was purple. Because when you get on the really cheap sales on Amazon, you can buy tooth whitener that's actually just purple dye for your teeth. Yep. To make them a more neutral shade of gray, I guess. Lovely. But Becky, you have teeth that you grew yourself. I think you should be proud of this.
I grew these teeth myself. No braces, no whitener.
There you go.
Very little oral care. Yeah, I have them all, even though I grew up in Tennessee. So, we're doing good here. Mm-hmm. I want to introduce our guest. We have an amazing guest today that I think you guys are going to love. Her name is Jordan Harcourt-Hughes. And what she's going to talk about today is a little bit of a departure from our spooky ghost stories, but it's very, very spiritual and like into the veil.
We're getting woo today.
We're getting woo. But the funny thing is she's like, I don't really have a lot of ghost stories. And then she did. She totally had ghost stories.
Becky, when you first asked me if I had a ghost story, I said no, and you see how many I've told over the years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody has one. You just have to like coax it out. Absolutely loved talking to her. I know you guys are going to really, really enjoy it. You're going to enjoy it more than I enjoyed trying to figure out what to put on my lips before this interview began because so what happened was I grabbed the wrong color. I grabbed black.
Terrible choice.
It would have been fine. So I put the black on. I messed it up and I ended up with a big side stash kind of thing. Like it was like a half.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no. So I'm like scrubbing it all off. And then I have like little black streaks where it gotten, because my lips aren't very moist. I know, that word really bothers some people. So
It does, yes. Maybe we should bleep it.
moist, moist, moist. Yeah.
Bleep, bleep,
And
bleep.
then, so then I grabbed this purple eyeliner because,
Oh, that's eyeliner.
yeah,
Nice.
eyeliner.
Like high school.
I don't use products where they're supposed to be.
Why care about safety testing on specific body parts? Psh.
I have a lot of recalled cosmetics. I'm like, what is your FDA unapproval is a sale item for me.
Again, don't take advice from an entertainment ghost podcast.
And when we open the Homespun Haints Apothecary selling Diana's brown mouthwash.
and paint repellent spray by Becky.
Paint repellent spray. Yes, we need to get on that. We can say you've been warned. Part of the reason I had to get dolled up, and I wanted to get dolled up in a very inappropriate way, was my son has a chorus concert tonight.
That's fabulous. So you wanted to wear offensive makeup for other moms in the PTA. They might not have enough reasons to judge you yet, so why not give them a couple more?
Okay, so here's the thing. My daughter had a chorus concert last week, and when I left it, I was shaking so hard with rage that I could barely eat my taco. I mean, it was a Tuesday, so I was eating a taco.
Did they make her sing a bunch of like hardcore religious songs? Or
Yep.
That's my experience with chorus too. It's not so much chorus as it is choir here in Oklahoma.
Right. Well, they even called it choir in the program. And I thought it was a little weird. So what this was it was an introduction to the high school choir, as they called it. So they had my daughter's middle school and the neighboring middle school that's also feeding into the high school. They had their choruses each sing a couple songs. And then they had the high school chorus come up. And I think there's like 7 or 12 different choruses in this high school.
Dang.
I counted 7 songs about God. And it wasn't like subtle. It wasn't like they were singing Handel's Messiah, right? And I'm like, I'm fine with Handel's Messiah. That's fine. These are beautiful classical pieces of music that were created because they were actually commissioned by the church. So of course they mentioned Deus, 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 right?
That makes sense. You kiss up to the boss, especially if the boss is the church.
These are modern songs. And they weren't even like subtle metaphors. The funny part of this story, I had these like pickle chips right before we went to this. Have you had chips flavored like pickles?
I live in Oklahoma. Of course I have.
Oh, they're so good. They are so good. I got a Trader Joe's and I bought these pickle chips and I ate like the entire bag. Well, my son and I, we like polished off the whole bag before we went in. Because I was like, oh, they're so good. And he's like, Mom, these are so good. But I bought him. He's like, gross. And I'm like, just try it. He's like, 11-year-old boy. He could not get enough of them. So I'm sitting there. I'm in the audience. I'm watching this mess, this craziness go down. And then I start getting distracted by the smell of pickled potatoes that has soaked into my skin and my clothing and my hair and my jacket from all of the pickled chips that I ate. And I'm like, doing this during the performance. And just as they finished and the clapping and applause had died down between pieces, without even thinking, in a loud voice, I said, I smell like pickles. I know I was heard because there's this whole like burst out of laughter of the people around me. And I was like, well, hopefully that made things a little bit easier for people.
They were expecting one of the kids on the stage to say something weird and inappropriate.
And this is like one of those like specially designed auditoriums where all the acoustics are perfect,
Oh, yeah.
You say one thing and it just carries everywhere.
I think I smell like pickles is a lot less inappropriate than, oh, there's the one I lost between my boobs or something like that,
Well, that's not the only thing I said. A few songs later, I kind of maybe said, I need drugs. And that didn't go over as well. Hopefully fewer people heard that one because I'm in a school setting. I didn't say what drugs I needed, but I needed something to get through the rest of this performance.
Just some Sudafed. What?
Anything to make me sleep through this.
By the way, Listeners, if you didn't know, we have a book club that meets almost once a month. If you'd like to join, it's free. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/homespunhaints, sign up for the free tier or any tier, and you can get book club meetup reminders.
And also on our Patreon, for those of you that are members, on March 11th, we will be having an Ask Us Anything for our paying members. You can get on a Zoom call and chat with us about anything you want to know.
All the episodes we've released so far, I guess.
Yeah.
That's about 300. If you're binging, good luck. But you don't have to get through the entire series to enjoy the conversation.
Maybe there will be some things that we can only reveal behind Zoom doors.
There are absolutely things we can only reveal behind closed doors. It's true. But that's what our patrons get.
If you want to check out our Patreon, as Diana said, it's at patreon.com/homespunhaints. And
if you're not a patron yet, we got this commercial just for you.
Oh man, I had a rough day.
what happened, honey?
I was out with the guys and they said I wasn't spooky enough.
Oh, honey, how could they say that to you? You're hella spooky.
You think so?
Of course. After all, you came up with the ectoplasm being ghost jizz theory, and you've been scratched by more horny ghosts than anyone else I know.
Well, I suppose you're right.
But if you're really worried about it, I have just the thing.
Oh, wow! A spooky AF t-shirt?
That's right. Our Spooky AF line comes in shirt, sweatshirt, pillow, and even a high-quality mug.
Man, those are super awesome, especially for something with profanity on it.
What's even better, all these items were hand-lettered exclusively for Homespun Hates by world-renowned calligrapher Nikki Malik.
Holy ghostly cannoli, that's amazing.
From now on, whenever you brandish your Spooky AF gear, no one will accuse you of being boring.
Yeah, I'm Spooky AF.
Visit homespunhates.com for all Spooky AF merchandise.
Today on the show, we are thrilled to bring on Jordan Harcourt-Hughes. She is an artist and author working out of Australia, I think is where you are currently, right, Jordan?
Correct, yeah.
She got up at 6 a.m. Well, actually, she's been up for a while. We are recording in the wee hours of the morning for her, but I just learned that she actually does most of her artistic practice within the hours of 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. because it's that amazing time where you're still half awake, still connected. And we also talk a lot about the witching hour here on the podcast. That's that time when that veil is thin between 3 and 4 a.m. We just, all those creative things, those downloads all happen at that time. So I'm so excited to hear about everything you do, Jordan. Welcome to the show.
Welcome.
Oh, thank you, Becky and Diana. It's so lovely to talk to you and to be here. Thanks for having me.
You are so multifaceted with the art you do. Tell us about I know you mentioned there were 5 distinct practices that you work in.
Yes, I am multifaceted and I love all of them. I actually first started out writing. So writing was my first creative practice, and that started when I was a kid. I've been through quite a journey with writing because when I got to the age of 19 and I had a very early midlife crisis. And I got to the point where I just thought words are useless. They don't work. Like they can be used to lie or to code things or to veil things. And I thought, this is ridiculous. I then completely left words. I stopped writing for a few years, and that's when I started working with metal sculpture. So I actually went to Scotland. I enrolled in a technical college there. I jumped into it. I had the best time. After metal sculpture, I came back to Sydney and I did a fine arts degree. So that's when I started doing big installations. I started painting, and painting is the creative practice that I actually took out of that journey. It was kind of something that was beyond words, and it felt truer to me because it was just a little bit more spiritually connected. I think you can express things through visual arts that you can't quite articulate in words. The painting is what got me back to writing. So I actually found that once I was tapped into my real creative energy through painting, the creative writing came back to me. So now I have fiction writing and painting. So I love to paint. And then my other creative practices are around my professional 9-to-5 work, which I still have. So I lead creative teams. And I also run creative workshops to help people tap into their creativity. Because one of the things I've found as adults is that we are in our logical minds so much. So we overthink things a lot. And part of my creative practice has been about stopping thinking and getting out of that logical headspace, because I think when you step out of that logical headspace, you can really start to get more tapped into that intuitive sense of self. I do a lot of mindful creativity courses, which is really just looking at the practice of mindfulness while you're doing art. And it's just a really nice grounding practice. So those are the things that I do.
You're so right. The first thing I think of when you described your experience from writing and then cutting off the writing because it wasn't saying what you wanted to say, and then going to visual arts and then back to writing, that makes sense to me so much. I've never thought about it that way before, but imagery and symbolism is the language of the subconscious, which you have to translate into your own words. And then when somebody hears it, they have to translate those words back into the image in their subconscious. Whereas when you communicate through imagery, you're communicating directly subconscious to subconscious,
I love
right?
how you've described that. You should write that down and use it. But language is a logical structure. Language is based on logic. So getting out of language helps us to get out of logic, I think.
Because both people's ego get in the way when you're trying to communicate through words.
Yes.
I get that.
Yes. So back to writing. Some of the things that I've been using my writing to do, given that I had so much trouble with that medium at the beginning, is think about holistic communication. And that's been my life goal in my creative practice, is to try and understand how we can use all of these different types of communication to reach a higher level of communing. And I like to call it communing with the universe, where it's a far more holistic way of sensing into the world, sensing into each other, into the environment, and really using all of those different senses to get a different kind of meaning, which we don't get through just one form of language. And I think it allows us to arrive somewhere completely different, which is interesting because it actually takes us outside of the general societal structure that we all work in. So that can feel completely strange. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you can get with it, which is why I like it. One of the experiences I had when I was making this transition between writing and painting was that I came back from Scotland from doing my sculpture experience, and I started studying a visual arts degree, majoring in sculpture, and it was in the grounds of an old insane asylum. So it's this beautiful historic collection of buildings in Sydney, and it's called Callan Park, and it was part of Sydney University. It was the most incredible space. So beautiful old sandstone buildings, like massive, massive spaces, but a real sense of this energy that hadn't quite dissipated yet. And, really kind of stepping into that. And when I started studying there, for some reason, I started really getting interested in madness, because I think madness is this interesting space where, a lot of creative people really struggle with this sense of being different or stepping outside of the normal. And that can drive you really mad really quickly. And so, and 3 years spent in that landscape, really they'd only stopped treating patients about 5 years before I started studying there. So it had been a very gradual migration, but that energy was still very present there. In the end, having been immersed in that space for 3 years and studying madness, I did think that I actually went a little bit mad. And one of the only times I've really had an experience of having a ghost-like energy make an appearance to me, and that was my grandfather. And I'd never seen him before. He never came back again, but I think he was just checking in to say, "Are you okay?" It's all getting a bit full on. But I think that experience was really helpful because I got out of it. In the end, I was fine. And I finished my degree, but it was my first experience of just stepping outside of our collective agreement of what we all think is normal. Having survived that, being not normal, was actually healthy for me to start my journey of figuring out how you can exist in your inner world that makes sense to you that may not make sense to everyone else.
Tell us about, in detail, this experience that you had with your grandfather.
I'd actually gotten a little bit sick. I was having skin situations. I was not sleeping. This experience with my grandfather, it wasn't anything that I could clearly absolutely say this is what it was. It's just what I sensed. And I think a lot of the time we have these experiences and we sense them. I was in the car and I was just at my absolute limit. I had used up all of my survival resources to figure out what was going on, and I was in tears and I was just didn't quite know what to do and feeling unwell and hugely tired because I was working and studying and, doing night shifts till 3 a.m. in the morning and just completely frenzied. And I was just sitting in my car and I was by myself and I just felt this energy very close. And it wasn't anything that I can see. It wasn't a visual apparition that appeared. It was really just a sensory experience. And my grandfather actually died before I was born. So I'd never met him in person. Didn't really know much other than the sense that I got that was my father's father and was just checking in to see if I was okay. And actually that was enough for me. It was just this really nice touch point. And I never felt it again, which is why I think it's real, because it wasn't something that I'd conjured because I thought it could happen. It was just something that happened and I made sense of it the best way I could. And it did help. And I think sometimes if this happens to us, it is, a sense of people just coming to check in on us.
Why do you think it was him specifically who came to you if you never saw him in life?
That is the perfect question. Who knows? And I think that's what happens. Probably one of my first experiences as well of trying to just sense into it and not try and explain it logically, because we will always try and find the logical connections. Why would it have been him at this point? And I don't know the answer to that. I sensed that that's what it was. Who knows?
One of my personal goals with this show is to become comfortable with not knowing,
yes.
with the unknowing,
yes.
just knowing that you can't know everything.
Exactly. That's why we say we collect ghost stories, because that is one of the ways that people understand this interaction between us and energies we don't really see or hear or feel in normal senses.
I was thinking about how many actual ghost stories I have to share with you. My husband's aunt pranked me on the day of her funeral, and it's exactly her. She was a beautiful, beautiful, fun, full of humour and adventure lady, and she passed away last year. So she's in New Zealand because my husband is from New Zealand, and her name was Margaret. So we've been over here in Australia. My husband went back to the funeral. I stayed here because we've got a dog and I work, and so it was just something we couldn't both do together. And the morning of her funeral, so Chris was in New Zealand, and I must have been deeply asleep because I nearly jumped out of bed with fright when I heard the doorbell ringing downstairs, and it rang. It was actually 4:00 in the morning, which is interesting because that's my time of day. Usually I'd be up, but I wasn't. I was asleep. 4:00 in the morning, the doorbell rings, and we have these screens in our house so you can see who's down on the steps. And so all I had to do was go to the screen on the top floor of the house and have a look to see who was ringing the doorbell so I could tell them to go away because it was too early. And there just wasn't anyone there. And it was very insistent. So the doorbell rang 4 times and there was absolutely no one there. I went downstairs, no one there. And you can't ring it without touching it and coming up on the screen, and there just wasn't anyone there. And I was terrified. I couldn't make sense of it. We'd never had a problem with this intercom before. It had never done this, and it's never done it again. And it was only that evening when I was talking to my husband on the phone that I said, you know what, I think Margaret popped in today. I think it was her way of just saying, see you later, because I couldn't be there. It was something I think that she would have found hilarious just to give me. It hasn't happened again, and I think she's gone on to her next journey and experience.
And that's something we hear about spirits that have recently passed. The more recently somebody that they know has passed away, the more likely they are to interact with electronic devices.
Yes.
For some reason. Do you feel like that's true, Becky? It's kind of more of a recentness thing.
So you also mentioned that you had out-of-body experiences.
I first started having out-of-body experiences when I was about 19. And 19 was when I actually also believed that I had a soul migration. That early time in my life when I was struggling with words and language, I did have some really interesting experiences because I've used my books and my art to really explore what I think has been going on. When I was 19, I started having a really early grieving experience. I had a sense of losing everything that I felt valuable, so I lost words. So I'd always wanted to write, and suddenly I realised words are rubbish. They can't do what I want. So see you later, words. I grew up kind of thinking that I wanted to have a connection with God, and then I realised everything that I'd ever learned about religion it just didn't work, and so that was another reality that had just gone. So I just didn't know what was left, and I went through this incredible grieving process. I've never experienced anything like it, but I think I grieved for about 2 years. And during that time, I felt like everything was shedding. I was becoming nothing because everything was just shedding away. This was the crux of it. I was in Melbourne and I was walking down the street, and for some reason I stopped and went back to the hotel because I thought I needed to go to the bathroom or pick something up. So I turned around and went back, and I came back down to the street after a couple of minutes, and about 3 blocks down, a truck had done a ridiculous turn and crashed into the wall. So essentially I saw that if I'd kept going, I would have been in the middle of the wall, be in between the wall and that truck, so I would have been gone. That was the last piece of the puzzle that just really shattered me into a million pieces, his sense of coming up against your own death and realising that actually things have shifted. And after that, I started, really experiencing this idea that actually I was different. I'd shed all this old part of me and I was different. But at the time, this was when I was 19, so it took me years and years to understand what that even was. But I do believe that that is what happened. So the person that I was gone, and either a new part of me had downloaded, so I downloaded a new part of my higher self, and potentially there was some soul braiding, which, people describe as some additional strength, being you downloading the strength of another more powerful soul to help you on your journey. And when I was 26, I formally changed my name because I really thought that I was now a different person that should be recognised, and I really felt I was a different vibration to who I was. And that's also the time that I started having the out-of-body experiences. So I was, again, terrified. These things are terrifying when they happen because we don't talk about them a lot unless you're in a really specific circle where these things are known. But if you're just a normal teenager or a normal 20-year-old, you don't know this stuff. The most interesting out-of-body experiences were first when I was in Melbourne. So I was going between Sydney and Melbourne a lot in my 20s. But anyway, this was in Melbourne, and I think actually this is where it started. I was staying with a friend of a friend. So I think sometimes these things happen in a landscape where we're not in our own space. We're a little bit out of place. I started just feeling that I was going out of my body and traveling. They're very vague memories because I think when we try and recall these experiences with our logical mind, that's not the language that our body is experiencing. So they're very vague.
You didn't take your meat brain with you
no,
on the journey.
Exactly. Yeah. But I do remember one of the times where I was out of my body. Maybe I was in my etheric body, and I remember being on a balcony and a whole bunch of people, like spirits and energies, were down on the ground, and they'd come for me. I knew that they were calling me, and I feel like they were probably either my soul tribe or kindreds that had come to say, okay, well, you're here in your etheric body, let's start having fun. But I was like, no, I'm not ready. And I told them to go away. And I always look back on that experience saying, why did I do that? Why didn't I just go with it, But no, I was really young and very inexperienced, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I let that one go. But when I was in Scotland, again, out of my own personal spaces in a foreign country, in a different kind of life, I really had started experiencing them in a much more tactile way. So, for example, I would feel myself lifting out of my body and going through the ceiling, and I could literally feel myself going through matter. And obviously you're not doing it with your physical body, you're doing it with some kind of, if it's your etherical body, but I could feel it. And I always remembered what that feeling felt like to go through the ceiling. And then I remember what it was like being in the sky, flying, because the wind would make my eyes water. That's how tactile and tangible it was. So those are the memories I have. And not that I went anywhere that I can remember that was incredible, although I'm sure I did. I just don't have the memory in my, in my logical brain of what happened. But I do know that the experiences were very, very real.
So you mentioned before we hit record that through your various artistic practices, you have found a way to connect with extraterrestrials. I'll just say it.
Well, I think I am one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do you mean after the soul transfer, or from before? Always.
Yeah, good question. I'm not really sure. When I changed my name formally, I knew I was starting to get a sense of being different, and that was because of the soul migration. But between that time and the age of 35, I was literally, a lot of my thinking was, I'm an alien. I'm not from here and I don't know what to do with this information. I really didn't. But I started writing. So I started writing The Alien's Handbook to Living on Earth. So that's still a current draft in my drawer. And then I came across the work of Dolores Cannon. That was the first book I was in the bookshop and that book would not leave me alone. So it was just talking to me. I think different things come to us at the right time. So books for me have always come to me at the right time. So Doris Cannon was this incredible woman who started doing past life regressions at quite a late age. She was an army wife, raised a family, and then just started going into this work. And it was the first person that I actually thought really knew what was going on. And her book, The Convoluted Universe 2, is something I recommend to everyone to read, because essentially what she started doing was she started doing past life regressions with people just to help them get in contact with past lives. But what happened is that the people who were going through, were under hypnosis, started talking about life on other planets and started providing information about extraterrestrial existence. And everything that came through was incredibly interesting, and it just felt very true to me. So it was a sense of me really connecting, going, oh my God, someone's talking the truth. Someone's saying real things for the first time in my life. She also wrote a book called The Three Volunteers. So she wrote about the three waves of people that have incarnated on Earth to just be here and to contribute different skills and to participate as we're going through this, big change. She broke it down into different times. So if you were born between, this year and this year, you're probably the first wave. And if you're born between this year and this year, you're the second. So I was born in 76. So I fit into that second category of the volunteers that incarnated here on Earth. I always feel like this potentially my first incarnation here, because I really have found it very odd being here. But anyway, so around that time I was learning more about the language of starseeds and all the kinds of language that people talk about for people that are more connected to their galactic family or their stellar family than they are to a family that's here on Earth. That made a lot of sense to me. And I think what I started doing in my books is writing about the story that I was having. So in my books, the Petru series, Merowak is a metalsmith who can tune metal to otherworld frequencies. And so really I found fiction writing is a really great way to start playing with these experiences. For me, it is actually the creative process that has led me to feel that I'm tapping into something that is extraterrestrial. It happens when you're deeply immersed and you can start to feel energies appear around you. And as soon as you start to learn how to sense into those energies, because as I said, they can be really subtle. They don't just appear as a fully fleshed out being. They don't potentially talk to you in a way that you expect. It's really just opening up your body's sensory capabilities. And that's what I mean through having a holistic communication approach. We are using our whole bodies and our intuition and our subconscious to feel what's around us. And I think if we can do that, that's when we start to tap into this idea that there's a lot going on around us.
I was nodding along because I know what you're talking about when you do get into quote unquote the zone and you start experiencing that, and it's like, is this me? Is this something outside of me? It's sometimes hard to know, but that's also, why do they have to be two separate things? Why can't something be outside of me and inside of me at the same time?
Oh, I love that. Yes. And you know what? I think that's what kind of frustrates me about the way we think about extraterrestrial life, that we should look outwards. Actually, I think we should look inwards. I think the more we do, the more we look inside, the more we will find. There's a couple of paintings that I've done called the Speaker series, and they all have their eyes masked. And I think for me, that is the sense that we can't see what's really out there if we try and look with our eyes, because we're just getting distracted. We live in such a visual world, but I don't think we can see everything that's out there with just our eyeballs, essentially.
Absolutely. Well, our eyeballs are just picking up tiny little points of light, and then our meat brain, as Diana says, is interpolating it. So we're creating our own reality every time we're looking with our eyes.
Do you think feel that this experience of being an extraterrestrial is something that's pretty unique to yourself or a certain group of people or specific people? Or is this something that maybe souls just cycle through different planetary experiences in general?
Yeah, if I were to combine my own feelings with what I've read and learned, I think there's thousands and thousands of planets that we can incarnate in. So we can, and we are on a journey of being in different planets and different places because they all have different things to teach us, and it's part of our journey as souls too. We go where our vibration takes us. So we will go to the best place where we can learn and grow. If we've happened to arrive here, then we've chosen it, or it's the right place because that's where our frequency has led us to take the next path on our journey. That's the way I think of it. As to whether it's only me or a select group of people, I think that's about consciousness and personal feeling as well. So I wouldn't ever say that person's this or that person's that. I think you have to arrive at your own awakening. And that's why I think when we have, there's lots of conversations about disclosure. So when will the governments disclose that extraterrestrial contact has already happened? I don't think disclosure is something that happens. It doesn't have to happen on a global level. It's not something that we have to wait for. It's a very personal thing. Disclosure is when we arrive at a place where we can understand that we may have had lives on other planets. We may be here to experience a life as a human.
That kind of inspired me to be excited about thinking about being reincarnated in another universe somewhere. And that's so thrilling to me, the idea that why would I stay here on my soul's journey? Why would I continue learning things on this planet when there are so many others? I love that.
That's what I think is exciting. I think that this is what I love about it. And it's probably the creative in me that thinks that why would we not want this for ourselves? Why would we not want this really exciting journey of being to be able to go so many different places and have so many different experiences? Like, why not? It's amazing.
Your whole experience then, it feels like the longest, most drawn out near-death experience. Would you classify it as a near-death experience because you barely missed the collision? And then all of a sudden you were seeing people down below who were your soul's family, kind of welcoming you into the new realization that you were now a different person. And we had a guest a few seasons ago who had 7 near-death experiences in a row where she actually died about 7 times after a severe trauma. But she says that she now has a new birthday and a new zodiac chart.
Oh, wow.
Because of that newness of having been reborn through her near-death experience. Is that kind of resonate with you, or is that completely separate experience?
It's a really interesting question. I think, who knows? The thing that I keep as my own story is that it's just been a gradual evolution of who I am. I'm one of those people that don't fear death at all. I think it's just going to be a transition to the next planet or the next journey. But, who's to say? I mean, there's so much that we still don't understand. Like, I'm not sure that we can ever completely 100% say this is exactly what's going on because it's such an interesting, diverse universe that we live in. But yeah, I think I'm still alive.
that is the no fear of death. That's another commonality between people with near-death experience stories. So
well, there you go. Yeah,
there's some crossover there somewhere.
Well, Jordan, do you have a website where people can go and find out all of these things that you're doing, your classes, your artwork, your books?
Yep. So jordanharcourt-hughes.com. That's where you can find everything.
Is that all one word or are there hyphenations in it?
All one word.
We'll have that on our show notes and in the description of this episode so that everybody can go and find that and check out what you have to offer. It sounds amazing. You do so many things. I don't know how you have time for even the dog, but that it must mean that you're really in tune with everything if you're able to kind of make all of it work. It sounds amazing. Very inspirational.
I love it all, and that helps.
Do you have any upcoming projects, publications, gallery shows, or anything that we could help promote?
Yeah, so my second book's just come out. So this book is the story of metalsmith Merriwak, who tunes metal to otherworld frequencies. So the book High Country is just out now, so you can find out more about that on my website as well.
Excellent.
Painted Loves, what is your opinion? Have you downloaded any interesting things from past lives on other planets? And if you did you have a spooky day?
Homespun Haints is hosted by Becky Kielimnik and Diana Doty, and produced by Homespun Haints Media LLC. Editing and music by Becky Kielimnik. Show notes by Diana Doty. If you have a ghost story and you'd like to be considered as a guest for this podcast, please visit our website at homespunhaints.com/submit.